All right. So in the previous lecture, we have discussed about your activation functions. Okay, what are the activation functions which are used in the deep learning? We have seen sigmoid function. We have seen ReLU function. We have also seen your softmax function. Okay, 10H function. All the activation functions we have seen, and we have also checked which function should be used in the hidden layers, which function should be used in the output layer. Okay, and the basic concepts are like all the hidden layers should have the same activation function. And what is your problem statement? Accordingly, you need to choose your activation function on the output layer. Okay, so very much important lecture that was based upon the activation functions. Now let's proceed ahead. And as we are talking about the deep learning, and it has been originated from artificial neural network. Okay, to be very basic, ANN is a simple neural network in which we are only available with one hidden layer. Okay, that means we are having input layer, hidden layer, and output layer. That is also called as artificial neural network. Okay, and why? Because as I already told, we don't want to increase the complexity of the system. So we are just keeping one hidden layer only in the artificial neural network. Now, what made this concept of ANN came? Okay, how this has been prepared, this architecture has been prepared. So it has been prepared on the basis of biological neural network as like that of our human brain, because our human brain also comprises of neurons which is being trained for computation, and this is where our learning performs. Okay, neurons, biological neurons. Biological means as we are living persons, so definitely we will be but we all are a biological product. Okay, so the concept of ANN is based upon the working of a neurons, architecture of a neurons in a human brain, like a human brain. Okay, so this concept of neural network was first developed by American neurosciologist Warren McCullough and American logician Walter Pitts in 1943. Okay, so in 1943 itself, they have given this concept of neural network. So, by referring to the biological neural network, then that has been given the concept of ANN. So, what happens in a biological neural network? It is also a network of interconnected neurons, as we are having in ANN. Also, biological neural network has also been interconnection of the neurons. Here the biological neuron consists of a cell body. Okay, a neuron consists of a cell body, dendrites, and axon. That means we are having three components here. We are having a cell body, dendrites, and axon. Okay, the cell body is also called a soma. Okay, so it is soma, while dendrites and axon are filaments that extrude from it. Okay, which are coming out from your cell body. Okay, so from soma we are having dendrites and axon coming out. Okay, it extrudes from it. Okay, these are the filaments. The dendrites typically extrude a few hundred micrometers from the soma. Okay, about a length of a few hundred micrometers. This is the length of your dendrites from the soma. While the axon can be a larger to a meter, they can be 1 meter long, and at the end of the axon are the axon terminals, and each terminal is connected to another neuron. So at the end of the axon there is a terminal, and another neuron has been connected to it by the synapse. Okay, so this is interconnection by the help of a synapse. So one neuron is connected to another neuron by this your axon. Okay, an axon, there is a terminal, and each terminal there in this terminal there is a connection, and this connection is called as a synapse. For each neuron, the dendrites are the inputs. Okay, so we the give the input in the biological neuron with the help of dendrites. Okay, and the axon will do the task of the output. Okay, And in a human brain, we are having typically about 100 billion neurons. Okay, so here, if we talk about the structure of a neuron in a human brain, it comprises of your cell body, dendrites, and axon. Okay, so these dendrites, they will be working as an input for the neuron, and axon will be working as an output to the neuron, and whatever the output it has been coming, they are connected to the another neuron with the help of a synapse. Okay, this is where the junction, okay, this is where a junction is, and that is a terminal connection with the synapse to the another neuron. So um, there are three neurons basically. One are the sensory neurons, which respond to stimuli. If you are touching, okay, that means gives us senses on the touch, on the basis of sound, on the basis of light, and send the signals to the brain. So obviously whatever the activity is happening, they all been sent to the brain for the computation in the form of your signals. Okay, so there are some other neurons also in our body, that is the motor neurons, which receives the signals from the brain to control the muscle. Okay, so we also send the signals to the brain for the computation also, and we receive the signals from the brain also for controlling purposes. Okay, so interneurons connect neurons to one neuron to the another neuron. Okay, connection of one neuron to the another neuron, that is interneuron, that will be interneuron connection. However, this is not simply enough to discuss about biological neural network. Let us study more about this. Okay, so to be very basic, we found that a neuron comprises of your cell body, dendrites, and the axon. Okay, dendrites are taking as an input and input of the signal. Okay, and axon are transmitting the output. Okay, and it has been received by another neuron through the dendrites. Okay, and there is a interconnection. There is a terminal which is called as a synapse. Okay, so let me discuss more about this biological neural network. Okay, so I will share another screen. Okay, so biological neuron, as I already told, they are individual cells. Okay, I already told that biological neuron comprises of a cell body, so they are individual cells which are comprises of the main body, that is the cell body, which are having tendrils or dendrites, whatever I said, that extend from the body. Okay, so as I already used a word in the previous document also, that they are like a filaments. So it's these neurons in our brain, they are individual cells, individual cell body, and they are expanded with the help of in the form of a filaments, and they are known as dendrites and axon. The spelling can be changed. Okay, so here they are called as tendrils, but they are just similar as dendrites. And here the body or the soma, okay, the cell body or the soma is a house, the machinery for maintaining all the functions, basic functions are all been done here, and all the energy processing. Okay, that is your DNA containing nucleus. It comprises of organelles for building proteins and sugar, processing sugar and oxygen, everything. Okay, whatever the computation needs to be performed, because I already told that it ANN also, artificial neural network also, the computation is been done on the neuron. And what kind of computation you do? You said, sir, there is a weight W, there is an input x, so we multiply w by x, and plus we add a bias to it, and we give it to the activation function. Okay, this is what task we are performing over the neurons in the hidden layers. Okay, the same like here also we are having the organelles, we are having the nucleus, and for building proteins and processing sugar and oxygen, all this stuff. So there are two types of dendrites, that is dendrites, I've already told that. There's a dendrites, okay, which receive the information and bring to the cell body, and axons. Okay, as I already told. Okay, so one is for the transmitting and one is for the input. Okay, so here is the structure of the neuron. So you can see that these are the dendrites, these are like a dendrites, and this is a soma. Okay, and here is the axon. Okay, so axon is been connected to another neuron with the help of a terminals. Okay, you can see that axon terminals that will ultimately a synapse. Okay, so these are the axon terminals you can see outside here. Okay, and by the help of which it will be connected to the another neuron. So this is a complete neuron. This is a complete neuron. So what is here Soma? What is the Soma? Soma is your cell body. Okay, so this is your cell body. Here inside you can see a small organelle. Okay, or cell like a structure. Okay, so here this is a soma or a cell body, and remaining are the dendrites from which we are receiving the data, and from the axon we are transmitting the data to the another neuron. Okay, so information transmission from a transmitting neuron to receive a neuron is roughly comprises of the three stages. What happens? Okay, first, the transmitting neuron generates spatially and temporally confined electrical burst. Okay, that is a spike. Okay, so there is a generation of electrical signals. First, transmitting neuron, the neuron which is required to transmit the data, transmit the signal, it create an electrical burst that is called a spike that travels to the another neuron's axon from the cell body. Okay, this axon of the transmitting neuron is connected to a dendrite of the receiving neuron, that is by a synapse. Okay, that is by a synapse. So here what happens is, as already told, the axon terminal of the transmitting neuron. So here is the axon terminal. For example, let us consider this is a transmitting neuron. So whatever the signal has been generated here in the neuron, that will be transmitted through the axon terminals. Okay, and the another neuron is connected with this axon terminals by what, connected to the dendrite of the receiving neuron with the help of a synapse. Okay, so here there will be a synapse that will be connected to the dendrites, these structure, dendrites, these structures of the another neuron for the receiving purpose. So obviously dendrites are for receiving, axon are for transmitting, and soma is your cell body. Okay, so this is what happening. And the transmitting neuron synapse to release chemicals, whatever they do, neurotransmitters and whatever. Okay, whatever the operation they are performing, any signal, any data, what they are transmitting, this is can be done. This is how the communication has been performed between the two neurons. Okay, so here you can see that much more better architecture. Okay, so here, for example, this is your neurotransmitter. Okay, and this is how your neurotransmitter are these like cells. Okay, these cells like structure you can see. This is your axon terminal. This is your axon, yeah, exit. Okay, axon terminal. This one this one this is your axon terminal. This complete is axon terminal, which comprises of neurotransmitter and neurotransmitter transporter. Okay, transporter. This is synaptic vesicle. This is synaptic vesicle, and this is voltage. Okay, these are the voltages. Okay, and from here the output comes. From here the output comes, which has been received by the dendrite of the another neuron. So you can see that there are certain receptors. These are certainly the receptors. So ye are these are called as your transporters. Okay, transporter or transmitter, whatever you can say. Okay, these are voltage channels. Okay, these are in a pink, these are voltage channels. Okay, so here the basic thing which you need to understand is there is a transmitter, there is a transporter. Okay, which carry out the signals and hand over the signals to the dendrite, where there are receptors available. Okay, of the another neuron. So this is the axon, this is the axon exit. Okay, this is axon exit or a terminal. Okay, here you can see or here you can see your synapse. Okay, synapse, this is synaptic vesicle. Okay, this is synaptic cleft. Okay, that is a bridge between the interconnection of the two neurons. So this is certainly a bridge. Okay, and this bridge has been in operation by your synapse. Okay, so whatever has been transmitted from here at the axon terminal will be received by the receptor of your another neuron. Okay, so you got the point? Do you understood?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
this is a much more elaborative diagram of your exon terminals. That what does your exon terminals consist of? So ultimately, your exon terminals consist of the transmitters, which transmits the signals. Okay, and that it is received by the receiver of the dendrites of the another neuron. That's it. This is what you generally need to understand. Now, specialized receptors are there for receiving the neuron. Okay, that means specialized receptors will be there to initiate the number of cellular events when neurotransmitter molecules bind to the receptors. The events could be opening of a cellular channels which initiate another electrical wave propagating through the receiving neuron dendrite towards its cell body. See what happens is I am talking about the spike. I am talking about the electrical signals. Okay, generation of the signals. They are generally the input. Okay, whatever the input which you give in ANN. Okay, that has been following the same concept basis of your biological neuron only. So there are receptors, as I already told. They are specialized receptors which recognize that what kind of signal has been given to us. Okay, so they capture that kind of signals and understand that what what how to initiate the number of cellular, what event I need to initiate when the neurotransmitter molecules bind to the receptors, what kind of event I need to initiate. Okay, that means it will give you a sense or it will give you feeling. That means I call na sensory organs. Okay, so in biological neural network you are available with different kind of senses. That means it can be like a sensory neuron also, on the sensory neuron which can generate a signal related to a touch, either it can generate a signal related to the sound or light, whatever the activities is been happening. So these receivers understand what basically a kind of a signal has been received by us. Okay, then accordingly they carry forward via dendrite. Okay, to ahead. Okay, those events it will transform the signal ahead. Okay, to make your cell or soma to perform the computation. That neuron will perform the computation over it finally. So whatever we are receiving here, we are transforming to the soma or the cell body for the computation purpose, and then accordingly we are going to respond. This is how your brain respond. Okay, so the information from one neuron can be transmitted to the another neuron. Okay, when the neuron receives multiple excitatory spikes, that spikes means signals, multiple signals from multiple transmitting neurons, the electrical energy is accumulated in the neuron cell body. Okay, because obviously there is a generation, because when we transfer the signals, obviously there is a generation of electricity, some energy will be generated. Okay, and if this energy is enough to accumulate in a short period of time, the neuron will generate outgoing spikes. Okay, so after performing the computation of this signals which we received, and by calculating the energy of these neurons, we transform the output to the next neuron. Okay, so that means there will be complete transform of the energy from one neuron to the another neuron. Okay, so here obviously in this process one neuron will rely on the another neuron for the energy. Okay, if in case your neurons are not being active, if they are not producing the energy, so ultimately we will say that okay, your brain is not working. What is this brain did? What is this brain did? A brain dead person doesn't feels anything, whether you perform a pinch, whether you do a lot of sound near to that person, huge sound near to, no, there's no sensory, their neurons are not active, they are not transmitting anything, there is no energy generated in the neurons. So if there is no communication between the neurons, obviously there will be no activity there. Okay, so here in case of biological neurons there are few more things. In order to understand the modeling that takes place in a biological neurons to the deep learning neurons, we need to understand some important concepts, some important terms. That is, one is a rate coding, another is a synaptic strength. Rate coding and the synaptic strength. Okay, because we have already talked about the generation of energy in the neurons with the help of your signals, and then the transmitting of that energy via in the form of signals to the another neuron. So there are some basic definitions, some basic concepts which we need to further study in case of biological neurons. They are rate coding, synaptic strength, and excitatory and inhibitory transmission. Exhibitory and inhibitory transmission. Okay, so what these are? First, let us study one by one. Is the rate encoding. Rate encoding. Okay, a neuron that receive only a smaller number of excitatory spikes of the signal. Okay, very small number of signals will produce and send few spikes of its own. Okay, it doesn't mean that if you are giving a huge signal or a less signal, whatever the kind of signals you are receiving, ultimately corresponding signals will be transmitted. Okay, if that same neuron receives many signals, okay, then it will send many signals of its own. Okay, depends. See, the kind of energy which is been the kind of energy which has been initiated in your neuron, accordingly it will transfer the data. Okay, if the energy is more, then the transmission will be accordingly. If the energy is less, then the transmission will be according to the less energy. Although the spikes in biological neuron have temporal characteristics, and temporal resolution is blurred in the deep learning neurons. Okay, that means this will be a temporary in nature. Whatever this activity has been going on, that will is having a temporary characteristics, temporary, not a permanent. It doesn't mean as, for example, if you got a sense of a touch, it doesn't mean that every time or full time or whole day 24 hours you are in a feel of a touch only. No, it's not like that. Okay, at a moment you feel, you got a feel of a touch. Okay, it's been transferred to the whatever be the kind of signal generated by the touch. Okay, you receive, your neuron will receive that kind of signal, and accordingly it will transfer to the next neuron. That's it, for temporary amount of time. If you are even been in a continuous touch, then it will be transmitting the continuous signal. If a touch has been done and the hand has been removed, that's okay. Okay, for that particular moment of time, this process is going on. Okay, so for a given amount of time, unit of time, this activity in the deep learning neuron is represented like this. Okay, you can see that this is the activity generated. Okay, this is your activity according to the wavelength, nanometers wavelength. Okay, because signals are generated in no, in a form of a wavelength. Okay, so you can see that these are three signals, B, G, R. There are three signals. Okay, for example, three neurons are present in the system which receive indirect input from one of the three graphs of the color sensitive cone cells in the eye. Okay, for example, our eye has been continuously, it's a continuous watch, because you are currently also watching this lecture, this live session. Okay, so obviously whatever the light reflected from your laptop or system, whatever from where you are performing this study, okay, or this learning, so accordingly your eyes movement and every activity has been producing something, some sensory activities of signals has been generated here, and that will be transmitted to the neurons which are present in the brain, and they are being active, and that means it's a continuous process right now. That means you are watching your laptop for this. And also one more thing, your hearing also, you are currently hearing me also, so your ears are also generating the signals. Okay, and that is again transmitted to the neuron for the computation. So here each neuron has been maximally responsive to a particular wavelength of the light. Okay, so whatever the light has been coming, as I already told, whatever the light has been coming, accordingly the activity has been generated. Okay, and here it has been reported that the average spike rate, or the average signal rate is normalized to between 0 and 1. So this is, you can see that 0 to 1 on a scale. On y axis you can see 0 to 1, and these are the three VGR. These are the three colors, okay, which your eyes are in visible. So this is how I can see the wavelength. Okay, whatever the light has been reflected from the skin, whatever be the kind of light reflected from the screen, that will be according to the wavelength only. So that will be visualized to the, how you can differentiate a color according to the wavelength only. This is a black color, this is a blue color, this is green color, this is red color, according to the wavelength only, and it has been received by your eyes. Okay, this is the work of the sensory organs, and a neuron is performing the computation, it is been interpreting, and we people have learned, okay, this is blue, this is green, this is red, this is how we have learned. Okay, now biological neuron information is encoded to the relative time of the spikes in individual or multiple neurons, not just in the individual neuron spikes rate. This type of information coding and transmission is absent in deep learning neurons. Okay, there is a coding that was I was telling you about, that is the rate coding. Okay, so here what we noticed in biological neurons, the information is encoded in the relative timing of the signals. In individual or multiple neurons, there is a encoding. Okay, encode encoding was there. Encoding means, what do you mean by encoding decoding? I hope, have you heard about your encoding and decoding thing also? What can you understand by encoding and decoding?
Yeah, I've heard about it, sir, but
Uh-huh.
exactly I don't know.
Okay. See, basically, encoding, if you talk about in machine learning, see, encoding is a technique to convert categorical variables into numerical values. Okay, so that
Okay.
it could be easily fitted in your machine learning model. Okay, so this is a general definition of encoding in a machine learning. However, currently we are working on the biological neural network. Okay, so we are working on a biological neural network. So ultimately, here also the same compatible thing of encoding has been done. Okay, compatible thing of encoding has been done. Whatever the received by your eyes, by the sense organ, there will be generation of electrical signals, some voltage which are having some numerical values or whatsoever. Okay, some like current like thing has been generated. So here, the sense according to the sense, how much it has been active, till how much time it has been active, rate has been calculated. So this is how it is been mentioned, rate encoding. Okay, rate rate encoding. Okay, so
Okay.
till when you are watching a particular thing, your eyes are been receiving the colors from it of different wavelength. So you're recognizing that this color is this color is this. So these are the wavelength of those colors. Okay, and whatever has been received, that will be converted into your electrical signals. Okay, some numerical format, some voltages, okay, whatsoever. And here you can see that it has been normalized to 0 to 1. Okay, it has been normalized, these spikes. Okay, they have been normalized between 0 to 1. Okay, and either here, it has been clearly told that either it can be encoded in the relative timing of the spikes or the signals in individual, either for individual neuron or for multiple neurons, for many neurons. Okay, so basically I believe that it is in general for the multiple neurons. But however, in our ANN, in our deep learning, this information coding and transmission is absent in deep learning neurons. We don't have this kind of phenomena, information encoding. Okay, so we need to give the input in already in in format of a coded. We need to give in the input in that particular format only. Here it is not required. See, are you seeing anything in 0 1 format? Is that the case? Are you seeing? No, you are taking the
Mm.
input in a continuous format. You are receiving everything in a continuous format. But what happened? Your sensory organs are converting into, and they're encoding, just some electrical signals has been generated inside, and that has been interpreted by the neuron. Okay, and it has been
Okay.
understood. Okay, fine. Okay, this color is this and that color is that, and I'm hearing this and that and whatever the activity. Okay, so this is called as rate encoding, rate on a particular amount of time, how the encoding has been performed. Okay, that is called as rate encoding. The next thing is
Okay, sir.
synaptic strength. Synaptic strength. What is the synaptic? See, we very well know that. What is the synapse? See, synapse is a terminal point, no? Between
Mm.
connection of dendrites. Okay, dendrite and your exam terminal and your dendrites. Because from exam you are going to give the output in the form of your whatever signals, and dendrite will receive them for the next neuron. Okay, so what is the synapse? Synapse is a terminal point. It's a pathway. So not all signals are equal, obviously. Some signals will be high signals, some signals are low. So while propagating signals reach the exon terminals, the amount of energy will obviously that will be reduced depending upon the strength. This is a practical fact. Okay, for example, if I need to travel from one place to another place, if I'm moving with my foots obviously, or if I'm taking vehicle also, so obviously there is a loss of energy. Okay,
Mm.
there will loss of energy. So obviously the strength of the signal will get down. Okay, see, the strength of the signal will get down. This strength is reflected to the number of psychological parameters, including the amount of neurotransmitters available for the release. Okay, depending how many transmitters are there, they're transmitting the signals. Okay, and the number of neurotransmitter receptors also. If the transmitters are more, receptors are less, obviously there will be a loss of signals. Okay, real world will also been work on the same purpose. Now, for example, we also hear radio also, radio towers, mobile towers also send the signals, no? Signals.
Yeah.
And our mobile is a receptor of those signals. Therefore we are able to get 4G connection or 5G. Okay, because now the latest is the 5G. Okay, so we are looking for the cell towers, whether we are getting 4G or 5G or not. So if your tower is nearby, okay, so the strength of the signal are more. If your towers are farther, strength of the signal is less. Obviously depend upon the distance. Here the strength of the signal has been calculated. Okay, and number of receivers also. Okay, if my receivers are good as per according to the transmitters, so there will be uh, exact number of signals or will be shared between the two neurons. So here you can say that normal neurotransmitters neurotransmitters and dendrite. Okay, you can see that synaptic cleft 20 nanometer. This is the distance. This is distance, and this is how your neurotransmitter are been transmitting the signals to the your dendrite. So synaptic
Right.
cleft. That means this is the distance between them, 20 nanometers. Okay, and these signals has been traveled from your cell body by the exam. So they already traveled some distance. Okay, they already traveled some distance. Okay, and this is normal case. Now when they are potentiated, when there is a potential, when there is a potential rate, when there is energy, so you can see that what is the strength? The density has been increased here. You can see that density has been increased, and your transmitters and receivers both become active. Both become active right now. See, one and two, you can see the density has been increased. Okay, so this depends upon the strength. See, you can see the dots here. Okay, these are ready to send these dots to the dendrite of the another neuron. So here these are the ready when they are in potentiated. Okay, when there is a more energy, so you can see that how they are active. So let us, regardless, in a deep learning neuron, synaptic strength is represented by a single floating point number and is commonly referred to the weight of the synapse.
Okay.
So what we are talking about the weight in our artificial neural network, that it is a parameter. We told weight and bias in the previous lecture. We already discussed that weight and bias both are the parameters. Okay, and
Yes.
initially we give some weight to our neural network, and later on, depending upon the learning and in order to reduce the losses, the adjustments of the weight has been done according to the automatic purpose. Automatically there is an adjustment. I already told you in the
Mm.
previous lectures.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here weight of the synapse. Okay, so if we talk about this synaptic strength, okay, this is ultimately the synaptic strength is represented by the weight. Okay, so whatever the input which we are going to take, we multiply it by weight. Okay, and it is
Mm.
represented by a floating point number, not complete thing, because it depends how many transmitters are there, how many receivers are there, whether the proper signals has been transmitted or received or not, or there obviously there will be loss of energy. So the same thing, 101% there will be losses, there will be a losses also. Okay, and the same phenomena has been applied over ANN also. we see the losses because the neurons are interconnected, and obviously there will be transmission of the signals, there will be loss of energies. How much loss? And my main goal is to reduce the loss here also, so that my signals should be transmitted and received properly. If the energy has been transmitted and received, um, uh, received okay, in the proper format, then obviously my neurons will be active or initiated properly. Okay. Now the next thing is, so you understood about the rate thing also, synaptic strength also. Now the next thing is excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitters. Okay, what these are? See, we have considered excitatory neurotransmission. That means from one neuron to another neuron. Okay, from one neuron transmission to another neuron transmission. In that case, spikes of the signals recede from the transmitting neuron increase likelihood that a receiving neuron will also spike. Okay, that means the signals recede from a transmitting neuron increase the likelihood that the receiving neuron will also be spiked. That means the receiving neuron will also be initiated, okay, by the signal which a neuron is sending to that neuron, another neuron. Okay, whatever the energy I am transferring to you with the help of a voice, with the help of a sound, I believe that the same, with the same rate you are also learning with me. Okay, so this is my belief. Okay, this is due to the particular property of the activated receptors on the receiving neuron. So for example, if you are a receiving neuron and you are also having the sense organs, okay, and you are listening to me with your ears, okay, and whatever I am speaking, that is going to the neurons which are present in your brain, and they're getting activated. Okay, this is my belief, this is my belief, and you are also been performing the task according to which has been this activity is going on. So although an oversimplification, one can group neurotransmitters and the receptors into an excitatory class and an inhibitory class. There could be two classes, the one which are transmitting and the one which are accepting. There could be two classes. So your neurons right now are receiving the information from my side, and you are keeping quiet, you are just listening to me, so you are the receptors now. So ultimately you can come into inhibitory class, and my will be my neurotransmitters and transmitters will be like an exhibitory.
Excited.
Okay, so when inhibitory neurotransmitters binds to an inhibitory receptors, the electrical energy at the dendrite in the receiving neuron is reduced rather than the increased. Now, what will happen when inhibitory neurotransmitters, inhibitory which are in an acceptance, okay, which are waiting, okay, then only they will transmit, binds to the inhibitory receptors. When there's a connection between these two inhibitory transmitters and inhibitory receptors, they are binded towards each other. The electrical energy of the dendrite, okay, because dendrite is the only person who is going to receive the information from the exam, from the exam terminal. Okay, so in that case, if neurotransmitters and inhibitory receptor or receptors, okay, are bind together, in that particular case there will be reduction in the energy. In general, we can say that neurons have receptors for both excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitters. So there could be two types of transmitters: excitatory also, and inhibitory also. Both these are the neurotransmitters present in your neurons, but can release or transmit only one class or the other. Okay, but it can only transmit one class or other. Means there are many excitatory neurons also which release neurotransmitter, then inhibitory neurons which release another kind of a spike. So there could be two spike, that is neurotransmitter glutamate and neurotransmitter GABA. Okay, so they have given the two names here. Inhibitory neurons are important for increasing the information sensitivity, okay, and uh, thus they contribute to the information routing, that is where to transmit the neurons and what activity is need to be performed here. Okay, so the point is inhibitory and exhibitory, these are the two transmitters which we have mentioned here. Now, do you do you have any doubt, or let me okay, let me re-explain it. first, I explain inhibitory transmitters one again, neurotransmitters again. See, inhibitory transmitters, neurotransmitters block, or it prevents the message from being passed along any further. Okay, I don't want them to travel furthermore. I block it. Okay, so as I told here, GABA. Okay, GABA. That is called as GABA is called as it's called as like gamma aminobutyric acid, glycine, and serotonin. These are the examples of inhibitory neurotransmitters. Okay, they are named. Yeah, these are the inhibitory neurotransmitters. So basically, what they used to do, what is the task? They block or prevent the message from being passed further, furthermore. This is the
Okay.
task of your inhibitory neurotransmitters. Okay, and what could be the task or of exhibitory neurotransmitters? What does they will be doing? They excite the neuron and cause it to send the message. Okay, send the message, come on, come on, transfer the message. Okay, and the message continues, it continues traveling, it continues passes along one cell to the another cell. So the basically you are having exhibitory neurons, which are used to transfer the information, transfer the signal, transfer the energy from one neuron to the another neuron. And
Mm.
you are having inhibitory neurons, which blocks exhibitory neurotransmitters, which blocks the further traveling of the signals.
Signals.
Okay, so this is the difference between exhibitory and inhibitory neurons. Okay,
Okay, sir.
so
Got it, sir.
exhibitory neurotransmitters can be like glutamate, it can be epinephrine, and it can be neurofrine. Okay, there could be many. These are biological names for exhibitory neurotransmitters. Okay, so whatever I could remember, I can. Okay, so
Okay,
now,
sir.
so the point is, this is how they are working. So in deep learning networks, uh, we haven't found any concept of exhibitory and inhibitory. Okay, there is no distinction. There is no distinction. Those have only exhibitory or orbit neurotransmitters respectively. All neurons have output activity that is greater than zero, and it's a synapses, the model inhibition. Okay, ultimately we don't have such kind of things. No distinction between what is exhibitory and what is inhibitory. Ultimately, the goal of the artificial neural network neuron is to receive and to transmit that. Whatever I have received, I need to transmit ahead to the next layer of the neuron, to the next layer in which the neuron is present, because the neurons are interconnected there. Here also neurons are interconnected. There also neurons are interconnected. Okay, I am not talking about any synapse here in ANN. There is no synapse or something like that. They are interconnected. Okay, and obviously, whatever the computation is done, they will be transferred to the next neuron. That's it. Okay, so here the weights of the synapse are allowed to be negative. The weight can be negative also. In this case, the inputs from the transmitting neuron causes the output of the receiving neuron to be reduced. So what will happen in case the weights of the synapses is negative? In case the weights are negative, here the input from the transmitting neuron, whatever you inputs from the transmitting neurons, input from the transmitting neurons cause the output of the receiving neurons उल्टा हो गया सब. ट्रांसमिटिंग न्यूरॉन का इनपुट और रिसीविंग का आउटपुट, ये कम हो जाएंगे. यहाँ पर ये उल्टा हो जाएगा यदि वेट नेगेटिव हो गया तो. ओके, यदि वेट पॉजिटिव है तो फिर जैसा चल रहा वैसे ही चलेगा. ओके, इन दैट केस क्या है कि जो ट्रांसमिटिंग न्यूरॉन्स का आउटपुट और रिसीविंग न्यूरॉन्स का उसमें इनपुट होगा. लेकिन यदि वेट्स नेगेटिव हो गए, इन दिस केस द इनपुट्स फ्रॉम द ट्रांसमिटिंग न्यूरॉन्स, ठीक है, उल्टा बोल दिया हमने, इनपुट्स फ्रॉम द ट्रांसमिटिंग न्यूरॉन्स बोल दिया, कॉज द आउटपुट, मतलब वो रिवर्स हो गई प्रोसेस, कॉज द आउटपुट ऑफ द रिसीविंग न्यूरॉन. जो रिसीव कर रहा था वो आउटपुट हो जाएगा उसका, और जो सेंड कर रहा था उसका वो इनपुट हो जाएगा. रिवर्स
Input हो
कर दिया
जाएगा.
हमने, ये चेंज द प्रोसेस. ओके, ये टास्क है.
Okay, sir.
ओके, तो have you understood the architecture
Yeah.
of the biological neuron? So, this concept ANN came from biological neuron only. Okay, from that only it has been received. Okay, and
Okay.
in the year, you have seen that in which year we have already made this concept in the year of 1943. McCullough and your Walter Pitts. Okay, McCullough Pitts. Okay, so when there is a discussion of a deep learning of ANN, obviously this is required to make you understand how the biological neuron also work, biological neural network also work.
Mm.
Okay, so here, if we find the difference, what is the difference between your ANN and biological neural network? So the processing speed, our processing speed, biological neural network is faster. How? Why? How many biological neurons you are having? 100 million. 100 million neurons you are already present in your brain. And who counted 100 million? See, I don't know who counted, but this is a figure. This is just a figure which I got an information. I told you there are about 100 million neurons are available, and this is ANN. Sorry, processing is fast as compared to the biological neural network. ANN processing fast, but however your BNN, okay, its processing the information is slow. See why ANN is faster than BNN? Why ANN is faster than BNN? What could be the reason? Why artificial neural
Mm.
network can be faster? See, why we have developed the machine to solve our daily problems. Okay, and ultimately, right now we in our stage for making its computation much more
Much
powerful,
faster.
more faster. We have gone from i3, then i5, then i7, then i9.
Mm.
Okay, what are these? These are processors. Okay, very high computing, millions of instructions per second, microsecond, nanosecond. Okay, so ultimately here they have told that the processing speed. Okay, because we don't have such kind of complex interconnection in ANN. However, in case of biological, there is a complex interconnection. Okay, you have seen that there are some other things also apart from this weight and multiplication with the input and bias. No, there are some other things also, because this is a reality, biological neural network. Okay, but here it's just it's a copy, it's a replica of BNN. Then here, allocation for the storage of new process is strictly irrepressible, as the old location is saved for the previous process. Here, allocation of storage of the new process is easy. Okay, here we know that our brain is continuously active and keep on learning. Okay, so did we borrow any storage from someone else? Have you borrowed any
No.
storage? No, no. Okay,
No.
so obviously that means whatever the space has been available, we are just continuously storing, उसके ऊपर वो तो करते जा
Mm.
रहे हैं ना, वो तो चल ही रहा है. Whatever you learned, you saved in your memory, that is stored in your memory. Okay, so वो रहेगा. Okay, so allocation
Mm.
storage to the new process is something complicated here, but it's easy here. So process operate in sequential mode here. In case of ANN, it's sequential in nature, but the process which are operate in your biological neural network, it is parallel in nature. It's a parallel processing, so it follows parallel processing. It process sequential. Okay, so the point is, you click on one thing. Have you clicked on one thing? I take sequential model. Do you remember? Whenever I performed a deep learning project, I do take a sequential model.
Yeah.
Okay, model equal to sequential.
It's mentioned in the input layer.
Yeah, and then I define the input layer, whatever input layer, output layer, hidden layers, and what activation function I need to keep. This is what I used to perform. Okay, so whatever you have seen in the projects from these lectures, it will be helpful for you to understand. Okay, so here this operation is a sequential in nature. Any information is corrupted, it cannot be retrieved in case of ANN. If any information is corrupted, so we need to take care of the information. Okay, while feeding and training our model in case of ANN. However, information is distributed into the network throughout the subnodes. Even if it is corrupted, it can be retrieved in biological neural network. Okay, so if there is any mistake or if there is any corruption in the data or information whatsoever, it can be corrected here in biological. Okay, it's an auto process. Okay, but here it will be difficult. If once your model
Mm.
has been running training or whatsoever, once it gets started and if you block its training, then obviously it will generate an error. So whatever been corruption is there, or whatever be the loss or Okay, so it will be difficult for retrieval of the information. Once lost is lost, that's it. The activities are continuously monitored by control unit. Obviously here we are having certain parameters, and on the basis of parameters we are notifying their value. So there is a one thing, history. Okay, history here. So we do print the history, whatever the number of times our model got trained, and what is the your validation accuracy, and what is your loss, validation loss, and your training loss and training accuracy. Okay, so number of epos, so we used to plot the graph, so everything here is been stored in the history. However, there is no control unit to monitor the information being processed on the network. Okay, we don't have any what kind of we don't have any storage additional thing. There's no control, there's no monitor actually, not storage, there's no monitor. What kind of computation has been going on in the brain? Okay, there's no person who will monitoring all this. Computation is going on, that's we know. But what is a control? Okay, there's nothing like present in your biological neural network. Okay, so this is the difference between your ANN and the BNN.
This is a basically ANN is come like came from BNN only.
BN
Like
only, yes, by our biological neural network. That means from our brain only. This concept came from that purpose only. Okay, and right now we are working on this ANN. That means artificial neural network, only one hidden layer. But now we have increased the complexity of the system, and we have included much more hidden layers, because the reason is I need to make my model learn more effective, efficient. Okay, so the complexity is increased because of the number of new hidden layers or intermediate layers increased, dense layers increased. But ultimately, my goal is to make my model, learn more and understand more. Okay, and it give me, after the learning, it give me the true results, or valid results. Okay, for which it has been trained for. Okay, so remember, if someone asks you what is the difference between ANN and the deep learning, you have to say. And someone asks you what is the difference between BNN and ANN. So I have told you each and every component which is present in the BNN and what is the difference here. Okay, this is very much important. Okay, so a difference between ANN and BNN, these are the points which are available in front of you, and the difference between ANN and deep learning. See, deep learning is based upon ANN only, but only the point is, in case of deep learning,
hidden layer,
we are having
hidden more
multiple
hidden
hidden
layers.
layers. Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. Okay, that is the only difference. Okay,
Okay.
so stop the recording. That's all for this lecture today.
Okay, sir.